Get ready. Woo! We are on tour, and we're doing it better than anybody else alive.
Sir, what? When you talking to me, you talking about a nigga that'll fuck your whole world up. You and your boys make a scene, I'm thinking AC Green, cause it's gonna be at least 4 or 5 you niggas in the room curled up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You ain't nothing but a MC.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Buck Stops Here. I am your host, Hound Dog Buck 50, bringing you the latest in battle rap news. And I am the illest battle rapper in the game. Now, on this episode, we're going to talk about not necessarily battle rap, but we're going to talk about age in hip hop. Not necessarily battle rap, but in hip hop. And why is it that the older rappers, from previous eras, or really have a hard time really to do anything in this current climate and be relative. Okay, so this is not a new topic, but it comes up from time to time. I recently heard it when I was watching Method Man on My Expert Opinion, and he was talking about how the older rappers, if they do something, they can tour, but if they do something now, if they do an album in the current climate, nobody will care. Like he used DMX, for example, that he said, why he do an album, watch, it's not going to sell. Because, he's old or whatever, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I've always thought about this, but, at the time, I guess I never had a voice. So now that I have a voice, I'm going to put my 2 cents in, piggyback, so to speak. For me personally, I don't even think it's so much the age why most, rappers from previous eras, if you want to call it old school, don't succeed. I don't think it's that. I think it has a lot to do with one word: your timeline. And I'll explain. When you're an artist, we're going to say, we're going to venture off into other stuff, but we're going to stick to rap. When you're a hip-hop artist from a previous era, and you were dominant in that era, whether it was a 2-year stretch or 3-year stretch, the combination of you coming from that era and you already sort of being stamped as a dominant person in that era, it almost archives you to staying in that era when your time is done. And so now if you try to make something in the current, generation, you're tagged as that guy from then. You look at somebody like Lil Bow Wow. Lil Bow Wow's not, in theory, he's not old. He's like in his early 30s. He's a grown man. But if he were to make an album now, he more than likely would get kind of tagged with his timeline. Oh, that's old boy from, ain't that the dude from So Def? Like almost like it's a joke or something. So the timeline plays a big part. I mean, you do have exceptions to the rule like Jay-Z, but Jay-Z is such a rare, example. And then you have to look at some of the things that Jay-Z did to remain relevant. Like the one joint where he did with the Samsung phones, where you could get his album on the phone. I forgot, but those that's listening, you know what I'm talking about. He was very clever too. Anybody that was hot, Jay would attach his name to their, single or remix to try to stay relevant. Or even like somebody like Fat Joe, who's been out for almost 30 years. Fat Joe is one of the few that can still drop a single. And it's like, current. Not just current in sound, but, it's like, okay, they play it for real. You know what I mean? And But I would say this too. I think that's when I go back to the whole dominant thing in the era. Fat Joe was from my era. And Fat Joe had songs, don't get it twisted, back then. But Fat Joe didn't necessarily have a dominant era that was just his, where you could just tag him and say, okay, this was Fat Joe's time when he dominated from 91 to 94 or 90 to 93. And I think that almost helped him in terms of trying later on to make music and be relevant, because he wasn't necessarily tagged as that dude from back then. It's almost like when you have a group and you have, usually there's a voice in the group that dominates, like Public Enemy. When you hear Public Enemy, you think Chuck D, Flavor Flav. So if they make an album now, a few people will buy it, but for the most part, no new consumers will take heed. But if you were a member, like let's say I was in Public Enemy, and then I dropped something, nobody knows my voice, so it's new to the new audience. And if it's current music, and the fans are taken to it, the most they'll say is, "Oh, I saw that video with so and so. He's an OG. I thought, but whatever." So I don't think it's necessarily the age that makes it difficult for the rappers from previous eras. I really believe it is the timeline, because it happens with a lot of kid rappers too. There's a lot of cats that came out, when I was young, that was like maybe like 15 or something like that, like the youngsters, or maybe like say Crisscross or whatever, and they're what you would call young OGs now, but still relatively young. But if they come out now, tagged to a timeline, wasn't, as if to say like, wasn't your time then? Why are you making music now? So I really think the timeline of which you entered into hip hop really can hurt you. It's that's a messed up thing to say, but I think that's what affects a lot of the rappers more so than the age itself. Because if you could come out at 8 years old making a record in 2000, and what is it like? Only 21 years later, so you're 29 now. You're still young, but people are always going to look at you as that cat that made records 21 years ago. So in essence, it's not even the old school rapper, as they say. It's your old news now. It's just not old school, it's old news. And that's how you're treated as such. Okay, you were then, we need something now. And in most cases, that's how it goes. The timeline is very, plays a big part in rappers being able to succeed years down the road. And if you were part of that previous era, but maybe not that successful, or you just sort of went under the radar, in some ways, it gives you a better chance to come back, because you weren't that pronounced voice from your era, to where everybody can say, "Oh yeah, ain't that dude from," you know what I mean? So that was just my take on it, on the whole old school rappers, if you will, and their lack of ability to sell effectively in the current era of battle rap. That was my take on it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave comments, and as always, peace, love, and whatever else you think of love.